Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Petteruti back again with Intellectual Medicine. We have an interesting show today, as always. We're going to cover some highlights in news. We like to focus on the news stories and elements within it that we feel affect our health and longevity most specifically. And we interlay those because, after all, the environment we live in, the culture we live in, affect our health. The economic vitality affects our health. Let's face it, if you have wealth, you have more opportunities to purchase better health care. Would you say, Shan?
I think so.
I mean, isn't that a kind of a shorthand way of saying rich people can buy better health?
Pretty much. Better health, better food, better medicine.
Right, better whatever. So anyhow, that's important. We're going to highlight a few things. The balloons that are killing people. We're going to tell you about a study showing an increase of death rate from marijuana use. Is that true or not true? 7 risk factors for dementia. Do you have any of them? And is there a safe cigarette they're trying to develop? And finally, organs from pigs. That's right, folks. Someday and soon you could get a liver, a spleen, or a heart from a pig.
Isn't that better than eating them? It's a good purpose.
Okay, we'll get to that in the next section, but contemplate this if you're a vegetarian. Would you take an organ from a pig, or would it go against your vegetarian ethos? I don't know. Think about it, because Shannon's looking at me like, you are a vegetarian, pretty much.
I am, but I mean, if I needed like a kidney or something, I would look at it as a positive for the animal.
It's
a life-giving, right?
It's a way of sustaining.
Them up. Exactly.
Right. Charlotte's Web. It's happy to give you that heart. Oh, boy. So anyhow, we need to always reflect on our purpose. Why is intellectual medicine here? Well, there's a need in our culture for intellectual thinking, to question dogma, and to question the concept of protocols that are so fast petrifying and taking over medicine. The essence of advance in medicine requires creative thinking. It requires application of new science to the human condition before that science has become fully validated. And when it becomes fully validated, it becomes a protocol. You get strep throat, you treat it with penicillin. It's a protocol. What's the protocol for treating or preventing dementia? We don't know. It doesn't exist. It requires an intellectual application of science as we know it, modifying risk factors as we know them, and applying it in real time. And then you can watch what happens and determine patients' outcomes. What's the protocol for making people slow down aging? I mean, that is at the core of what we do. We ask this question, why do we age? I'm not talking chronologically. Every year is a celebration because, well, we're happy to be alive. But what about the attributes we associate with aging? Shrinking, drying up, dulling of the brain, slowing of the reflexes. What's going on? And can it be modified? Well, inquisitive minds are researching this as we speak. The problem, of course, is the gulf that's opening up between dogmatic medicine and advanced thinking and application of those creative thoughts. The same holds true for many disease states. There are dogmas around every disease from cancer to fibromyalgia, some of which have merit and others serve to paralyze thought. So keep that in the back of your mind as you listen from week to week and you embrace and comprehend our mission. But from the news, Shannon, I kind of, this would drive me nuts. We have many people in our practice that have high blood pressure. And you know what they're going to do on Monday, Shannon?
They're going to go to work.
They're going to go to work. They're going to go to work. Why are they going to work? Because they are not disabled. Now, when you're in the military and you exit the service, you're given an exiting exam. And if, in fact, they determine that you've acquired certain permanent disabilities by virtue of your service, you're given a disability rating. And you get a percentage of that disability. So, for instance, if you have a bad back, that's about 10%. You don't get a 100% rating because of one limiting symptom. And yet that's exactly what's happening. You guys know what I'm building into, and this is how it affects our health. The retirement system in Rhode Island is absurd. The police and fire are feeding at the trough, and they have flipped around the notion of public service. We are serving them by virtue of propping up these absurd disability. Now, the quotes are floating in your mind, right? Disabilities that they get. Okay, so from the Providence Journal Bulletin, and by the way, if you haven't subscribed, please do. We need a robust fourth estate in order to keep people honest. Yeah, I know you can get stuff on the internet, and I do too, but subscribe to your regional paper. It will help support the investigative journalism. Anyhow, 69% of the firefighters in Cranston and 77% of the police in Cranston that are in the state municipal employers retirement system are disabled. Can you imagine?
No. How is that even?
How's that even possible? They get 2/3 of their pay tax-free. So here are some rational proposals. If you're disabled, doesn't that mean that you can't work?
That's right.
So shouldn't a criteria of collecting that disability be that you're not working? How about a dude that's taking a disability pension gets another full-time job?
All the time.
All the time, and they're disabled because now, and folks, this is before high blood pressure, signed into law by Gina Raimondo, was declared a disabling act. Now, how does this affect your health? It is a demographic time bomb that is going to bankrupt you and will siphon money from schools, from roads, from healthcare, and pump it into the pensioners' pockets. And the politicians did it for political expedience. They just didn't want to have a fight. They didn't want to mess with the unions. Unbelievable. This needs to be addressed. We need partial disabilities, for one thing. We need to reverse this notion that high blood pressure is disabling as a consequence of the time you spent serving. And we need to, you know what I would propose, Shan? I would mirror the military disability system.
Shouldn't it be something, I mean, you're disabled because, you I don't know, break your leg while you're, climbing a ladder, fighting a fire or something.
You make a great point. There are risks involved with the job, and they deserve to be protected.
And that's why it's there, right? If it happens on the job.
On the job, and it's a legitimate limiting disability, then yeah, that's understandable. But if we had something like the military system, I propose that the military has a high-risk job as well. People are shooting at them and blowing them up. And if it's a good enough disability program for them, it should be for everybody else. By the way, by comparison, Woonsocket, 16% of the police and 6% of the firefighters are on disability. Now, human nature being what it is, what do you think is going to happen in Woonsocket as they sit around and look at their brothers in Cranston making out? Well, they're going to start to feel pretty stupid, aren't they, Shannon? Like, hey, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That's not cool. Thank you, folks, for letting me get that out there. I think this is something we can't fall asleep at the wheel because, as you know, we're going to live to be 120, and that's going to add up to a lot of dough down the road. When we come back, death from balloons. We'll talk about it. This is Dr. Petteruti on Intellectual Medicine.
The problem with that is that they're never going to reverse it.
I don't know. I wouldn't never say never. They did a reform of the pensions recently. That's what Raimondo was famous for. And then she went in and did this. Okay, what were you saying? I didn't hear that, but thanks for sharing it with me. 113. That's too bad. He should have come to our clinic. We probably could have kept him around a while longer. All right. There's a left and a right to these things.
It says it.
Yeah, okay. It's like, where is it? It's like tiny print. Ah, there it is. So we'll talk about balloons when we get back. That's the thing they put in. Are you familiar with this? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Why would anyone?
Who would swallow a balloon and think that's a good idea?
The people that put the spigots on and dump the contents of their stomach out.
Oh. Are we shocked that this had a bad outcome, that this story ended poorly? What do you think's more interesting? Pig organs, the FDA looking for a safer cigarette. Here's a quote from the FDA, by the way. I'm going to tie this into the way that big money buys off medical institutions for their benefit. Encouraging the development of tobacco, the FDA is researching, looking into, there's a quote, encouraging the development of tobacco products that may be less dangerous than cigarettes. Encouraging that may be.
Wow.
And that's the FDA encouraging it. What's going on?
Well, money.
Bingo. Big tobacco,
Yeah,
they see an opportunity here. You don't think they're sitting back there in North Carolina going, yeah, man, we can get a safe cigarette, right? Reminds us of the day when docs used to promote them. So that might be interesting to talk about. But we'll talk about the balloons because then it ties into some of what we do. And we could talk about the top 7 risk factors for dementia because it does the same thing.
Balloons. But insurance pays for that.
I don't know. You know what? They might. They must.
They do.
They do?
Yes.
That's nuts.
That's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One balloon, what would that cost? 10,000 minimal, right? How many of these can you do for $10,000?
10,000. You could pay for 10 years of treatment at our center for 10,000. You think that's what? I'll bet it costs more than that.
I'm sure it does. I was trying to.
Not right. Well, this is where you should have freedom with your money. You know, we should have a catastrophic health insurance that's just there for the real dangerous crap. And everybody pays for everything else out of pocket.
Right. You want a balloon? Save up for it.
Want a balloon? Fine. Go pay for it. And then the people making the balloons would have to really be cost-effective aware. So I got caught on one of those internet hooks. Look at the picture of these 4 sisters over 40 years, and you got to click to watch them.
Gosh.
And they said the last one will make you cry. I'll tell you the last.
Oh.
Hi, folks. We are back. So we were just talking about the demographic time bomb that awaits these cavalier use of retirement plans. But as much as the retirement plan itself is poorly constructed, see, the actuarials are calculating based upon current lifespan, which is what, around, if you're listening to this show and you're over the age of 30, your lifespan is into the 90s, if you're of middle class or beyond. But one of the things that is shortening lifespan, and statistically, is obesity. So a clever company had this brilliant idea. Let's put a balloon in people's stomach. I mean, nothing could go wrong with that, right, Shannon?
Definitely
Just
not.
put a balloon.
Right.
Remember when your kids were running around with balloons, made you a little nervous?
Oh, I don't want to swallow them. Oh my God, you got to suck it in.
So here we have a company, several of them, in fact, that make these patented products. They put the balloon in your stomach and inflate them. An inflated balloon in your stomach, just banging around.
How uncomfortable just that alone?
Well, the complication rate is sky high. I should say the side effect rate is over 90%. So here you have this consultation. Yes, Mr. Smith, we're going to put a balloon in your stomach. There's a 90% chance it's going to make you feel crappy. And oh, by the way, your weight loss in the best case will be about 7%. 7%. Now, folks, at Intellectual Medicine, we consider 7% weight loss to be a good start. It's not the end goal. And by the way, you're not swallowing balloons. So shockingly, a complication has been discovered. You know what the complication is? It's death. 5 people who had these balloons put in died. The death rate from having balloons stuck in. You would think, Shan, that they'd pull it off the market.
I was just going to say that.
No.
They pulled it? Oh.
No, they're just kind of, gathering data, see what's going on.
Isn't it like a car recall? People don't get them taken out.
What do you do? These poor people swallowing balloons. Well, here's the problem for the public. They've been led to believe, and the majority of physicians believe, that weight loss cannot be treated except for some type of surgical intervention because they wrongly believe it's a consequence of ignorance, of lack of willpower, and that there's nothing to be done. Now, we have validated outcomes for over 15 years, demonstrating that the approach we have used is profoundly successful. One of the most important things you can do to extend your lifespan is live at your best weight. Our success rates exceed 15% of weight loss. Our patients get enormous benefits, and they don't have to swallow balloons. And Shan, you were saying it's insurance covered probably, right? So
of course
insurance
it is.
Paying like $10,000 for these balloons. Well, $10,000 would pay for 10 years of treatment at our center. So folks, before you swallow a balloon, and before you get a gastric bypass, and before you have that little spigot put in your stomach that drains the food.
That's just beyond. How do you do that?
They put a drain in your stomach, and the way it works is after you eat, you go to the bathroom and you drain the contents.
Can you imagine? What if you get that acid on your skin? I mean, what are the complications from that?
Can you imagine what that smells like?
No, gross.
Oh, are we back to the Roman days, Shannon? Like, didn't they used to have, in ancient Rome, they used to have a room you would go to after the feast to puke.
Oh.
It was a ritualistic activity, and it was considered almost insulting to your host if you didn't blow lunch up there because you weren't eating enough to satisfy yourself. Oh, good Lord. What have we come to, people? So no balloons, please, no balloons. There are ways, it all has to do with the neurochemistry. The reason why people cannot lose weight by diet and exercise is because we were genetically, neurochemically, and hormonally engineered to be fat. We're engineered to seek out and acquire energy, and it is such a powerful prerogative that your willpower means nothing against it. So do not feel bad, folks, if you have struggled with diet, because we know diet doesn't work. We know that exercise doesn't work for weight loss. It leaves us feeling a bit hopeless, and this is one of the, I think really one of the brilliant things intellectual medicine has done, Shan, is crack the code here and figure out how to move that ball forward. Speaking thereof, longevity has been tied to obesity, and the average person is going to gain, by age 55, the average woman is going to gain about 27 pounds, the average man about 22. And they have shown that if you gain as little as 15 pounds to 20 pounds, your risk of chronic disease goes up by 40 to 50%. The folks that live healthy are the folks that live lean. It's not easy. So you got to eat in an un-American way. That's a whole topic unto itself. Let's talk, what do you want to talk about next? Pigs? This pig thing is fascinating to me.
We got to talk about it.
It's so the problem with transferring pig organs into humans has been a virus that the pig harbors that could infect human cells. And they now, through genetic engineering, have figured out a way to obliterate the virus. Now that opens up the gates. They can experiment, and there are a couple of ways of doing this. One, literally taking a pig organ and putting it in your body. And I think the first pig organ will likely be a pancreas, because a pancreas can be put anywhere. It is not anatomically dependent on it for its function when it comes to diabetes. You know, those beta cells in the pancreas producing insulin. The next thing that'll happen are kidneys, pig kidneys, because there's a backlog of need. And ultimately, pig hearts. Now the next wave is going to be, hang on to your hat here, culturing human organs inside of a pig. In other words, you take the human organ, the cells thereof, and you use biological engineering to grow a new organ. Can you imagine that, Shannon?
That's cool.
So
I think that's cool.
Picture your, I don't know, you have kidney failure, and you know you got a couple of year window before the kidneys are going to shoot, they're going to die. You can start growing your own kidney.
Let's do it.
And you know, if you're going to do that, should the pig kind of live with you?
Oh, yes.
But
No, because then you got to kill it. That's sad.
We're approaching like science fiction. One of the points at intellectual medicine, we use this phrase a lot: live long enough to live forever. Now, of course, that's hyperbole. You're not going to live forever. At least I don't think so. You know, we're aiming at a longer life, not at immortality, and you know, a place to put everybody. But with these advances, if you have a healthy brain, if you have a healthy vascular system, if you've taken care of yourself, then when you're 80 years old and you need a kidney, you'll be ready, because those advances are happening rapidly. And that's one of the reasons why you want to keep yourself fiscally prepared as well. You know what's interesting to me is you look at people that are retired now that are maybe 70 or 80. When they started working, healthcare was an irrelevant expense. There was no line item that they needed to set aside for healthcare. Now there is. If you're contemplating, if you're at, I don't know, say 40 to 50 and you're contemplating retirement, you're thinking, what am I going to do for my healthcare? What line item in the future will be there that's not there today that we'll have to account for financially? Well, I maintain there's going to be a line item called life extension, anti-aging. And you know what? It's already there. Because most of these advances, the things that we know have the scientific potential to slow cellular aging are not going to be covered by your insurance. They are actually finding ways to slow down how fast cells age. Cells have little tentacles on them. The DNA of your cell has a telomere. Picture, if you would, an octopus with its long arms dangling behind it. Every time the cell divides, the DNA shortens its telomere a little bit. That is, those tentacles shorten a little bit every time it divides. If you're living a harsh life, that is smoking, drinking, and not taking good care of yourself, those tentacles corrode more quickly. It's called telomere degradation. When they get short enough, the cell dies. It's called cell apoptosis. When enough cells die, you die. Now they're researching ways to slow down and in some cases reverse telomere degradation. There's an enzyme called telomerase that restores telomeres that other animals have. There are clams that live over 500 years. They pulled a spear out of a whale once. It's a 250-year-old spear. These telomerase can restore cells and extend lifespan. The possibility of a lifespan explosion exists within our lifetime. Imagine yourself in, 1890 on your horse. And imagine like you're 10 years old on your horse. And somebody says to you, someday you're going to hop in a plane and fly to California. And you're thinking in 1890, you're nuts. But it happened. And it happened within that 10-year-old's lifespan. Think about what could happen for us. It's kind of exciting. And it's a little bit daunting when you contemplate that sort of wide unknown. But we need to talk about brains a little bit too. So death from balloons. And I want to talk a little bit about marijuana and cigarettes and tie these things together. The FDA is searching for and encouraging, and this is a quote, encouraging the development of tobacco products that may be less dangerous than cigarettes. That's a quote from the FDA. They're contemplating regulating nicotine. Isn't that a good thing? Having them regulate nicotine and tobacco? When we come back, I'm going to tell you the insidious danger in that statement and why that regulation is going to kill people. And we're going to talk about the top 7 causes of dementia. How many do you have? How many can be changed or avoided? And what can you do to keep your brain intact? I'm Dr. Petteruti. Up next, Doug Lizette from the Revolution Soft Wash News Center. See you after the break. Hey, I did okay.
You did.
So kind of segueing out.
You could always find out who it is. Who's the sponsor this week?
That's Doug Lizette.
No. Yeah, I'm saying that.
Oh, yeah,
You
the
never
sponsor.
know. Yeah, who the sponsor is.
You think we should solve the nuclear issue during the show?
You probably could.
I know, I kind of want to talk about it, but it doesn't tie in, and we have to talk about dementia.
Yeah. We got time. We got a half hour.
Your dementia.
Not really half hour.
How do I get this stuff? Okay.
State environmental officials in Rhode Island haven't found West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis in the latest round of mosquito tests. The Department of Environmental Management said that 150 mosquito samples from 30 traps set statewide on July 31st all tested negative. The WBO Sports Red Sox called the Yankees 5-4, Paw Sox beat the Columbus Clippers 8-1. And from the Seascape Long-Term Weather Center, the exclusive AccuWeather forecast calling for maybe a little rain this morning, some showers around. Otherwise, mostly cloudy today. It will be more humid.
You know what high-risk drinking is defined as?
No.
4 or more drinks or 5 or more drinks on any given day in a week. For a woman, it's 4 or more. For a man, it's 5. So if as a woman you go out and you have 4 drinks on Saturday night, that's considered high-risk drinking. Or for a man, if you have 5.
That's a lot of drinks.
It's a lot of drink with a lot of people that hit those numbers. Think about when we go out. If you have 2,
Yeah, I can't even imagine 4. Oh my gosh. Like, but I mean, it's all intolerance. But 4 drinks. Is it 4 beers? Is it 4?
well, they're talking ounces, ounce equivalents.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah,
5
yeah,
beers,
5 shots.
5 shots. But you're right, there are people that can throw that down and drive home.
Tolerance. Yeah, it's all tolerance, you know. Wow.
So we'll talk about dementia when we come back, and we'll talk about the development of tobacco. High-risk drinking we'll leave on a back burner in case we need it. That could be just a fun fact in the last segment.
But what is it considered high risk? Like, okay, so high risk for what? Everything?
If you have 4 or more in a week, high risk for medical outcomes, adverse medical outcome, early death, dementia, liver failure, all that whole gamut of risks. I mean, there are people that'll do that routinely. They'll go out every Saturday night, they'll have 4 drinks and think they're just having social drinking. The reports are in from the immunizations from 15-16. Maybe that might be another fun fact.
I think that's just, I think we should definitely talk about that. Big topic, especially coming into fall.
Yeah.
All the, pharmacies are
promoting them.
Yeah.
Top 7 risk factors. Number 1 is age. Number 2 is ApoE4 allele, a gene that can be tested for. Number 3 is diabetes. 4 is smoking. 5, not graduating high school. 6, black race, and 7, hypertension. So of those, you can eliminate smoking, high school, black race, hypertension, diabetes. So I have 2 of them, age, or maybe 2. I haven't tested for the gene. And the ApoE4 gene.
We should do that Monday.
Well, if you have it, your risk is 20%. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So there's still an 80% probability you're not going to get it.
But then you go with, okay, so you have the genes, so then what? You know what I mean?
I think that it would motivate you to do things that are brain protective. Why does age correlate? What about time on Earth corrodes a brain? Well, vascular, because there's a correlation between vascular risk factors and dementia. High blood pressure, dyslipidemia. So I would do the calcium scores. I'd make sure the arteries are clean. Then I would be high on antioxidants because free radicals corrode brain. And I would chelate the hell out of me. I'd get the lead down to like nothing. I mean, I think you should chelate anyhow because everybody's got lead. Exercise has not been shown to prevent dementia. However, to the extent it prevents vascular disease, it can. So there's more than one type of dementia. Alzheimer's, and then the number 2 cause, vascular. No blood, no brain. Studies with statins are interesting. Some of those correlate with improvement in population studies in dementia outcome, which would make some sense if it's given to somebody with vascular disease. I think that's the issue with statins. Who should get them? Instead of carpet bombing everybody because lower cholesterol is better, we need more diagnostic detail, like calcium scores and pulse wave. Like I had a woman the other day, she's 80 years old, on a statin drug, no history of heart attack or stroke. I was thinking, do you really need this statin drug? You're 80, you're healthy. What's it doing for you? Well, before we stopped it, we got a calcium score and a pulse wave. Her calcium score is over 500, including the left anterior descending artery, and her pulse wave was accelerated. So she's someone, despite no history of heart disease, it's high risk and should be on it. Statin insights. See what you guys get that are listening? They don't get this stuff. Statin insights. You got to know it's got to be targeted therapy as best it can. When we talk about primary care being stuck in 1950, you walk in a family doctor's office today, it ain't much different from 1950. Right?
No. It's a long break. 12 minutes. No, more than that already. 18 minutes of commercial.
18 minutes? We ended at 8:30.
We started at 8:07. And there was 6 minutes at 8:15.
Like leading up.
And now we're at 7 minutes.
Yeah. We should read our contracts.
Yeah, that's...
Now, back to Intellectual Wisdom with Dr. Petteruti. Call in now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
We are back. It's Dr. Petteruti with Shannon on intellectual medicine on a beautiful Saturday morning. Hey, every Saturday morning is beautiful. Most people will get a little break and have to go to work. That's kind of cool. So Shannon and I were just reflecting during the break of what it's like to walk into an average doctor's office today versus 1950. And we were noting that there wouldn't be much different, right? It kind of looks and feels the same. There's a stethoscope, a little hammer thing you whack your knee with, a little table you sit on. Now think about that. Why has primary care been so slow to adapt new change? The only thing different now is that stupid computer the doc stares at instead of looking at you. The computer he's staring at, banging a keyboard.
Well, they don't get reimbursed for anything else.
You know, you're right. And there's no incentive for innovation.
No.
You walk in intellectual medicine, it's going to look and feel very different. And we'll talk about some of the ways, and we're time into this dementia. The top 7 causes of dementia, as I promised before the break. Number 1, age. Number 2, a gene called ApoE4 that can be tested for. Number 3, diabetes. Number 4, smoking. Number 5, not graduating high school. Number 6, black race. And number 7, hypertension. Let's break these out a little bit and ask some questions. What about aging causes dementia or contributes to it? Rather than just presume that a brain is engineered to deteriorate over time, look at the variables. One of them, obesity. There's a study that correlates obesity with brain atrophy. That's brain shrinkage. Literally smaller brains shrinking faster in people with excess weight. Another risk factor, heavy metal, lead in particular. We talk about this a lot. We try to get this message out. We think it's so important. There are correlations between the amount of lifetime lead accumulated in your body and your intellect and the way your brain works. Simply put, more lead, less brain. And I'm not talking about the blood test that can tell whether or not you were exposed last night. We're talking about the provocative urine test, where we pull the lead out of the hiding places in its cells and test what comes out through the urine. A hair test can be of help in this regard as well. Those will give us an estimate of the total body burden of lead. I think everybody should be chelating and using intravenous calcium EDTA like we offer at Intellectual Medicine to lower those lead levels. Another factor, free radicals. Free radicals are inflammatory in nature and corrode brain. They also corrode your other organs. They're one of the 4 major pillars of accelerated aging. As we get older, we make more of them. We make them even faster when we are stressed, when we are sick, when we are fighting chronic disease, when you're flying in an aircraft. These are all age accelerators. And we can neutralize them, at least to a degree, by thoughtful application of antioxidants. Now, conventional medicine will tell you that this stuff has no impact. They don't know that. They don't have the data to say that. And when you look at the science behind it, it's logical that if you do things that are less noxious to the brain, it has a better shot at living longer. The studies, here's an example, Shannon. They did a study on gadolinium, which is used for MRIs and other imaging studies. They give it intravenously. And we now know it accumulates in the brain. So you get gadolinium in the brain. It's kind of like having a balloon in your stomach. You know, is that good or bad? If I ask the average person on the street, do you want gadolinium in your brain? I think they'd say no. Well, the FDA did a study and they determined that it's not dangerous. No risk to humans. Absolutely none. No problem here. We guarantee it. The study, Shannon, lasted 3 years. It takes 20 years on average from the point of insult to the point of symptom when it comes to your brain. If you play in the NFL and you get your head knocked around, and oh, by the way, on top of that, you like to go out and party, maybe there's a correlation, you know, those free radicals chewing up a brain that's been concussed. You don't get demented when you're 30. It hits you in your 50s. It's 20 years later. So those studies just aren't long enough. We maintain at Intellectual Medicine that the brain's designed to last a lifetime, and a lifetime is designed to be at least 120 years, and our mission is to figure out the barriers to those two things occurring. One of them is vascular. There's a correlation between vascular health and brain health. Now, everybody's justifiably fearful of Alzheimer's type dementia, but vascular dementia is the number 2 cause of loss of brain function. of dementia. So high blood pressure, diabetes, vascular disease. What about things that can be done to prevent that? Well, we all know the exercise, keeping your weight in check. How about pharmacology? And we were talking off air about the statin drugs. They certainly are controversial in the functional medicine world. And we believe they are overutilized because we're treating numbers. Why does the number matter? It matters because we think that the high cholesterol will put you at risk for arterial disease. Well, why not look at the arteries? I just told you that we have the stethoscope that Galileo was using, we're still banging around with, semi-useless piece of equipment. You got to have it though, right? You got a stethoscope
You
around
do.
the
I
neck.
mean, that means what? I'm a doctor. Look at me.
I'm a doctor. Look at me.
Okay.
But isn't there a difference between a doctor's stethoscope and a nurse stethoscope?
There is.
Remember that?
Our nurses aren't supposed to wear them, remember? Why
That's
would you be wearing
ridiculous.
them?
Anyhow, we do pulse wave velocities, which measures the age and elasticity of arteries. Combine that with a calcium score, which can visually see if there are deposits along your arteries of your heart. You would think these simple, harmless tests that are non-invasive would be universally applied. You would be wrong. They are not insurance reimbursed. The calcium score costs all of $100. The pulse wave velocity costs a couple of $100. They're cheap tests. And with that information, you can make some determinations based on arterial data, not sheer numbers. I'm looking at another one on this list too, Shannon, black race. Now, what is it about black race that increases the risk of dementia? Are these genetically weak brains? I don't think so. I think in this case, black race may well be a marker for poverty. And there are correlates between poverty and dementia. And when you think about the impoverished neighborhoods, people don't care about them as much. Flint, Michigan was not cared about as much as Greenwich, Connecticut. I'm going to bet they don't have a lead crisis in Greenwich, Connecticut. In Flint, they just don't care so much. Lead is ubiquitous and it corrodes brains. And healthy lifestyles are easier for the wealthy to buy. So we need to be mindful of this. Yeah, there are societal problems that can be addressed. We were just talking about the pension system and how that affects health. Here's an example of it, Shan. Because that money that would otherwise go to updating the water delivery system is not available. The money that would otherwise go to updating the sewage treatment system is not available. That's how the global budget affects everybody. And I think that we can do things individually, certainly controlling our weight. We can do chelation therapies. We can do IV therapies. We just designed, I'm very proud of this, a new drip at our center. It's called the Time Machine. And it's been engineered to address multiple issues. It has calcium EDTA, which pulls out heavy metals like lead, like mercury, like cadmium. And it has antioxidants in it. High-dose B vitamins, high-dose vitamin C, 7,500 milligrams of vitamin C, which encourages collagen strength and health. It also has L-lysine and L-arginine, and it has L-carnitine. Now, L-arginine is an amino acid that helps keep the arteries healthy. Think of it like Jergens lotion for the arteries. Smooths them out, keeps them healthy, helps the body produce nitrous oxide, which is a vasodilator. L-carnitine is a dipeptide, that's two amino acids stuck together, that pumps energy into the mitochondria. One of the markers of aging is mitochondrial dysfunction. That is, the energy battery power pack of your cells winds down. And L-carnitine can wind it back up again. Anyhow, we'll come back with more, folks. What do you want to talk about after the break, Shan? Let's update on immunizations. How well did they work last year? And we might, if we have enough time, solve the Korean missile crisis. I'm Dr. Petteruti, along with Shannon. This is Intellectual Medicine.
Donut cakes.
What?
Sorry, we're out of donuts for today.
Oh,
How do you run out of donuts?
that donut place. Donuts are so good.
Just make more. Why wouldn't you make more?
There's a study, a Finnish study, I can save this for next week, from the Journal of Gastroenterology that showed, in this study anyhow, there was no connection between proton pump inhibitors and dementia. They did a pretty good quality retrospective study.
Really?
I think it's less of a worry than it was the German study that showed the correlation. But you still have those issues with immunologic compromise, alteration of the microbiota of the gut,
Right. Absorption.
osteoporosis. We'll talk about that next week. I don't think we're going to have time.
Where is it snowing?
What?
I said, where's it snowing? Yikes.
It's fun watching the tail end of the football practice yesterday. Watching the kids doing the sprints at the end brought back fond memories. I know you're not a supporter of football. You still don't understand the glory of the sport.
Please, the glory of
Do you
the sport.
ever, now,
Oh my
do you ever
God.
look at, like at a track meet and just get a joyful memory of your own days?
I mean, it was fun, yeah. I mean, you like, oh, go on about it.
Because I like the way you react.
Football or nothing.
I don't think I ever said that. Did I say
You
that?
pretty much say that.
No, I said football über alles. It's the number one sport. It's not like the only sport.
It's not the number one sport.
Well,
In your brain, it is.
according to fan interest, it is number one sport.
Number 3, KCCNE takes your project from the initial consultation and design right through the finishing touches. Doing it yourself or have your own contractor? KCCNE has all your cabinet and countertop needs. At kccne.com, view the testimonials from our happy customers and the amazing selection of before and after pictures. Stop in our new showroom on Eston Ave in Pawtucket. View the countertops and visuals.
Now, back to Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call in now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
We are back. I'm Dr. Petteruti, the trusted source of information. We are an independent voice. We do not have any sponsors. We speak from our heart and our mind, from our own intellect, and we share it with our listening audience. Why do we not have sponsors? Because we are scrupulously virtuous, and quite frankly, we haven't been able to find any.
I was just going to say, I don't think we just haven't looked. There'll be another show. We'll talk about
Everybody's
that.
got their price. No, not us. Not us, Shannon. We are the virtuous and the poor. Anyhow, we are, right? That's us?
We are.
Virtuous and
That's
poor.
us, that's
We
us.
still don't own any furniture.
No.
And we still don't own a house.
We're getting there, though.
Yeah, but, let's think about it. There'll be a moment in time. I'm a veteran. I have a disability. And I don't have a home. I think, I get a cardboard
You get
sign. I can be on the street corner. Disabled vet.
You
Please
can,
help.
you can in Cranston now, right? Because
Well,
they deny that.
you can do it anywhere in Providence. They get special protection.
So
I
in
think,
Cranston too.
Yeah, they're going to, it's Mayor Loiser's priority is protecting street people. His other priority is protecting urban art,
Right.
or otherwise known as graffiti.
Right.
Now, look, I got to highlight this. I guess this has something to do with the public mental health. Now, people go to Florence because of the wonderfully paved highways and streets. They go to Venice because of the meticulously maintained sewage system and the bridges that are all reinforced. No, they go there because of the beauty and the art. Now, I don't mean to imply that deteriorating bridges and roads are acceptable. However, art is preeminent. Rhode Island succeeds in spite of some of its historically bad leadership because it's beautiful. And it's beautiful because of its citizens that are making art. Waterfire, RISD, architectural design, and public art. And so it is with great sadness that we noted Dave McCauley's mural to be painted over with white paint. and destroyed by the Department of Transportation. No, they said, Peter Alviti said at one point, he didn't want to spend, quote, $100,000 for a cartoon, end quote. Pete, it's more than a cartoon. It's part of our identity. Rhode Island is a state that cherishes its art. Public art is a gift to everybody. Not everybody can afford to buy paintings. Not everybody can afford to see and experience art firsthand. But Shannon, doesn't it just make you smile when you drive by and see that?
I tell you, last week I drove by and I was like, "What? Where is it?
Yep.
Like, did I go past it yet? Did I? I loved looking at it.
Me too.
I thought it was great.
You notice the way the state rallied around the big blue bug?
Oh, right.
Well, it's because that's a form of art in its own way. It's pop art, and we love it. Now, Pete, stop painting over murals. And this call out.
Why didn't they fix it?
Well, because it would have cost too much money, $100,000 to fix it. And, in fairness to Peter Alviti and the Department of Transportation, the blame here lies with the leadership of the city of Providence and the state of Rhode Island. I have never witnessed a city that's been more desecrated with vandalism than Providence.
I find it so funny now because every week, we drive over the bridge, 195 bridge. Yep. They haven't cleaned up the graffiti that's on the side coming into Providence, and now they're actually like crossing out their own graffiti and then graffitiing over it.
The graffiti wars.
Really?
Well, you know what? I once contacted one of the mayor of Providence's aides, and we were coming to the city, Shannon, and I said, what do you guys have to handle the graffiti? Oh, we have a hotline. You call that hotline and bang, we're on it, 48 hours. Every morning I go to work out, and I can see from the window where I work out the sign that's outside of Providence Place Mall, and I stare at the graffiti. It's been staring back at me. It's like a middle finger right at me for the last 6 months. It's sitting there.
But they used to.
They
would have a line. Yeah. So when I was at Planned Parenthood, they had graffiti up that someone did. So they said, "Oh, call the number, call the hotline."
Yeah.
24 hours gone. Waited. I was there 7 weeks. It was never gone.
Wow.
And they said this used to happen immediately. A couple of years ago, gone.
So Mayor Lozer, wake up. What's going on with your city? It's getting spray painted to death. That's terrible. Drives me crazy. What's been his big accomplishment? He's been mayor for what? I don't know. What administrative, legislative accomplishment can be ascribed to the current mayor other than protecting street people and expanding graffiti? Well, in fairness, he did inherit a bad budget, but that's, a lot of these things are legacy items. They happen one generation to the next, one leader to the next, and it is hard. It is a tough job. Well, we need to talk about the FDA, Shan. This is interesting to me, and we were talking about this before the break. The FDA is interested in regulating nicotine and tobacco. Now, folks, this is a horrible idea for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're regulating the amount of toxicity. They're not eliminating it. They're going to create a false impression that there is a safe cigarette. And this is being done. I guarantee there's huge lobbying happening from the tobacco people. Somewhere in North Carolina, they're sitting around a table going, we got to get people smoking again. It ain't good for business. We need us a safe cigarette. We need them boys at the FDA to give us a safe cigarette. And by regulating it, what are they going to put a seal of approval on a pack of cigarettes? Are they going to have grades of cigarette, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3? And people are going to smoke the lower grade cigarette because they think it's not as dangerous.
Don't they have that now? Aren't there ones that are like light or something?
Yeah, yep. It's all
right?
marketing. It's all marketing. Well, this is even better than the tobacco company marketing. It's the FDA marketing. Hey, folks, here's a hint. Tobacco's bad for you. Right? Do we need studies to prove it now? Do we need the FDA to regulate the amount of nicotine? No, it's bad for you. If you want to smoke, have at it. It's a free country. Every now and then, I smoke a cigar. I enjoy it. I understand it's bad for me if I smoke too many, but I enjoy it. So it's my prerogative. Likewise, if you want to take hookah, have a ball. Do you think that's good for you? I mean, health-wise, maybe. Psychologically, it relaxes you in the moment. We do not need the government to regulate a legal product that everybody knows is already toxic. Likewise, you look at marijuana now invading the market. I don't know how I feel about that, Shan, the legalization of marijuana. I guess on balance, I tend to say, well, fine. If you want to smoke, have at it, and we'll tax you for it at least. But the notion that it's a medicinal benefit, in some cases, if you have terminal cancer, it's been shown to have value. Cases of AIDS where you're losing weight shown to have value. So I think it has its role. But if you're otherwise healthy, recreational marijuana, study from the European Journal of Preventive Medicine, showed are 3 times more likely to die from hypertensive complications than those who didn't. With any observational study, you've got to be cautious in watching them because they don't necessarily prove causality. But, everything comes at a price. So ultimately, we at Intellectual Medicine encourage you to embrace your life and enjoy it, however you want to. Whether it means smoking marijuana or nicotine, it's not ours to judge your decision. Whether it's living heavy or lean, we don't judge your decision. Our objective is to make you live and help you live your best life without judgment, without predetermination of what that best life might mean. My father used to always say, Shan, about practicing medicine, he was a physician, nobody gets out alive. And he was right. And when you look at it in that broad perspective of philosophy, and you're dead for 1 trillion years, what matters most is how you live, not how long. So as we depart, though, I do want to do a retrospective highlight of the immunizations, right? This last flu immunization, Shan, effective 44% of the time across the board. In children, it was effective 60%. They have a better immune system. I'm willing to bet, though the stats weren't there, that in the elderly, it was less effective than the 44% number. This, folks, is not to imply that the immunization is worthless. Just that
Are we talking about the flu here?
Flu
shot.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. It's the flu shot, Shannon. They come out every year and they try to predict it. And remember a few years ago, they had that liquid flu for the kids?
The nasal you spray.
The nasal spray. Yeah, you know what they found out about it?
Yeah, not so good,
It doesn't work.
No, didn't work.
Didn't work at all.
No.
So and people wonder why our faith in some of these immunizations is a bit rattled. They tell us they work. They tell us, here, spray this crap up your nose. Didn't work. We have time to talk about the viral drift, about the way we do? Okay, yeah. So polio immunization is a great success in immunizations, and they deliver it to third world countries in a liquid form, a partially live virus that works to immunize the host, the child who gets it. However, the virus gets inside the child, replicates, mutates, is exited through their stool, contaminating other sources, and other children who've not been immunized get sick with polio. And it's a mutated form that is different from the natural polio. In fact, it is now the #1 cause of polio is mutated viral polio. It doesn't mean you don't get immunizations, folks. It means we want caution and we want information. And we want them to stop forcing the HPV on our kids. Do this study for 30 years and come back to me later. Well, folks, this is where you get the intellectual medicine truth every week. I'm Dr. Petteruti, along with Shannon at WPRO, hoping you live 120 youthful years. See you next week.